So as we said, it is a huge weekend in football. We have the divisional round of the playoffs, which I believe is the best weekend of the NFL because you have two great games on Saturday, two great games on Sunday. And then, of course, we have the national championship game between LSU and Clemson Monday night. We'll be in New Orleans, by the way, for that as we do our show there from walk-ons in New Orleans Monday morning. And then there's this other little story that Jason Fitz alluded to just out of nowhere. Mike Leach, going to be the new head coach, Mississippi State. And that in itself would be fine and interesting and fun because Mike Leach is fine and interesting and fun. But then you counter, wait a minute, Lane Kiffin is now the head coach at Ole Miss. So we're going to have Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach competing for the hearts and souls of minds of the good people of the state of Mississippi. And I am here for all of that right now.
Yeah, everybody's circling November 26th, the Egg Bowl, at the end of the year already when those two will meet. Listen, Leach has been incredibly fun. I don't know, maybe playing for him. I don't know. We'll have to ask some of the former players, obviously. But from the outside looking in, when his press conferences, he's giving out wedding advice, wondering which Pac-12 mascot would win in an all-out fight. I mean, he is a funny guy who has put together a great record at Washington State as far as wins. Record 11 wins this season, number 10 national ranking in 2018. His offenses a lot of times are one of the tops in the country with that air raid offense that he has. We'll see how it's going to all work in the SEC, but he is a must listen to when he's going to give a soundbite because it's not always about football. For those who may not know, he actually taught a class at Washington State called Insurgent Warfare and Football Strategies. I mean, the dude is just incredible. Again, as you watch him, I don't know what it's like to be under him as a coach and or a player.
Well, I was going to say, this is a guy that very publicly ripped his team's toughness during a lot of this season. He is
said they listened to their fat girlfriends at one point.
Yeah, like he's a guy that's got like a bit of problematic to his game at times. But Jeff Schwartz said this on the other day. I heard him on Will Cain's show. Said it. Mike Leach is an old school football coach. He just happens to run an offense that looks anything but.
Right.
Like he's a Hal Mummy-Tree guy. He was with him and part of that Kentucky staff. Obviously, we know he spent time in Lubbock at Texas Tech, spent before his time in Pullman, Washington, and now back in the SEC. And this is kind of the undercurrent of the offseason. And really what went on, like the center of the Mississippi State world and what the demand for this job was after Kiffin took the Ole Miss job was be interesting. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like from a football standpoint, and you're all operating this in the portion of the SEC that is the most difficult to win. And so we look at this and say, the burden is to just be interesting. And after an Egg Bowl where Elijah Moore changed the entire world by simulating peeing like a dog in the end zone, the bar for interesting is so insanely high, yet somehow this group seems primed to clear it.
Well, it just also proves that nothing matters in college sports. Leach agreed in principle to a contract extension through the 2024 season on December 5th with Washington State. Poof.
Oh, yeah.
Gone.
Listen, just a normal thing we know doesn't
much
matter.
in the same way Matt Rule had a contract extension at Baylor.
Exactly. He had talked, that Arkansas job was open. He had spoken to Arkansas about that. A couple of years ago, it was Tennessee as well. Jason, what do you think of Mike Leach in the SEC?
Here's the one thing I would say is that while, yes, the call to action is to be interesting, he's going to be paid substantially because it was $4 million a year he was getting at Washington State. So he's leaving, presumably, we'll find out terms today, for a lot of money. For what? I mean, at the end of the day, Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, they're all going to be better programs in the next 5 to 7 years. So Mississippi State is paying for relevance. They're not paying to win the SEC. They're still at best, other than you maybe a freakish year here or there with a DAC-type situation, talking about the 7th best program in the SEC alone. So any shot, Washington State may not always have been in the playoff conversation, but at least if there's belief in playoff expansion that at some point there might be automatic bids, things like that, he had a shot at saying, hey, we can win the Pac-12, maybe be in the playoff conversation. Now it's like, we can be middle of the pack in the SEC, but boy, is it going to be fun.
Maybe in the Pac-12. Every couple of years you might have a shot to lead the league in offense and all of this because we know what Mike Leach's patching offenses, even when you don't have the best signal caller available, are still going to put up tons of numbers. I mean, let's not overstate what he did at Washington State either. He couldn't beat Washington ever out there. They weren't beating the Pac-12 elite in a lot of instances other than that Gardner Minshew year in 18 when they were slinging the ball all over the place. So we don't have to overstate it either. Like, you're going to have a high-flying passing offense.
Right.
Your coach is going to have some interesting press conferences, and you're going to be relevant in a way that you were when Joe Moorhead was the head coach of your school.
Well, you're right, and that's going to put butts in seats too. Not that that's really an issue in the SEC, I understand, but people will be excited to watch this football team play. Also, Ryan Leaf going to join us at 9:30 Eastern. He obviously has more experience around Washington State than anybody, so I know Ryan's got some big thoughts on this for Mike Leach.
Yes, and we're looking forward to that. But at the end of the day, we're talking about Mississippi State for one reason and one reason only. Because
Mike
they
Leach.
hired Mike
Exactly
Leach.
right.
I mean, that's why they made the hire.
Oh, I mean, when we talked
That's
about
why they did it.
When we talked about doing that version of College Hard Knocks that they were doing,
Yeah.
we said there's only a handful of schools that could pull this off because in college the interest tends to lie in the head coach. And we said Mike Leach and Washington State, one of those programs, ended up being one of those programs. So it's just the way that this machine is wired right now. And again, when you hired Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, the game kind of changed.
So earlier this year, we're doing the big 150th anniversary celebration. A lot of us, you include, we've done interviews for that about different things in college football. So this is obviously before Leach was at Mississippi State. Leach was involved in these interviews a while ago and asked what was the worst visiting locker room he's ever been in, and without hesitation, he answered Mississippi State, the school he's at right now, the visiting locker room. He described the locker room, which the walls, floor, and ceiling were all concrete, no furniture, no benches, no lockers. In addition to 37 nails in the wall, Leach said there were 2 toilets side by side without seats in the middle of the locker room. Between them, 1 roll of toilet paper. He said, "My heart swelled with pride, the ultimate touch of brilliance."
Listen, they're just encouraging people to share.
Oh, my
That's all they're
gosh.
doing.
That's
so we'll see
awesome.
what happens now as Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach share the college football stage in the state of Mississippi. Athletic Director of Mississippi State, John Cohen, well done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mission accomplished, because we're talking about it for one reason only, that you got Mike Leach to go from Pullman to Starkville.
What's up? Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. Don't forget to download the ESPN app, and if you want more premium content, which you do, make sure that you subscribe to ESPN+. See you soon.